Hello, Stillwater. Welcome to the Still Connect podcast, a podcast all about Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'm your host, Denver Evans, a born and raised Stillwater local and owner of Stillwater Digital Marketing. Every week, I sit down to have a friendly chat with a local business owner or community leader who help make Stillwater such a great place to live. So, whether you're a longtime resident or just a visitor, this is your place to stay plugged in, stay inspired, and still connect with the stories that shape our community. Also, this podcast is a real tour of Stillwater, so this is actually a mobile podcast that I record on location, usually in the business of the person I'm interviewing. So for some of my interviews, you can actually watch the interviews. Today's episode is only audio. I got to sit down with Bobby Wintle, owner of District Bicycles in downtown Stillwater. This guy is amazing. I know you're going to love this chat, so let's just jump right in. Bobby, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your businesses? Just give us kind of an overview.
Definitely. Man, Denver, thanks for having me. Denver's, of all the things, too, incredible photographer, helped out at the finish line of Mid-South last year and hopefully again this year. And yeah, dude, I'm stoked to be on. So thank you. We my wife Crystal and I, we own District Bicycles. We opened District on October 27th, 2011. So we are 13 years strong of the shop. And then we had our first ever gravel race event. It was called Land Run 100 at the time, and that was in March. That was March 9th of 2013. So we're coming up this March. We changed the name. In 2020, we changed the name to the Mid-South, and the Mid-South is going to be, it's 13 years old this March.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's crazy.
How many competitors did you guys have last year?
Last year we had 3,200 from 48 states and 10 countries, including Tokyo, Japan.
Wow.
And others. And now this year with waitlist, I just checked yesterday, we are over 3,800 participants. Every state. More than 10 countries. I haven't counted them all yet. I just haven't had time. That's by far and above going to be the biggest one we've ever had.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So take us back to the beginning, like childhood Bobby.
Okay.
How did you get from there to here?
Honestly, it's music, man. Like music has shown me a whole side of like the human experience that I have wanted to know more about since, the first time I heard Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, and the fact that human expression could exist in that form, right? And as I got older, I got into baseball. I played baseball forever and played second base, tried to anyway. And then high school was regulated to the bench, and my love for music was deeper than ever. And a handful of dudes were doing a punk band with No Name. I was 15. I'd been in choir and stuff that whole time, like middle school, high school. Yeah. And the name of that band was LGF, or if we weren't playing a show at school, like a fundraiser, then we could go by our actual name, which was Lesbian Gunfire. And,
wow.
Still super best friends with Cale Wright, the drummer from that band. And we still play music together at Mid-South to this day,
yeah,
which is crazy, man. Like we're talking 25 years. Like,
wow.
Yeah, right? Because I'm almost 40. Like anyway, it's crazy. And I threw my arm out in baseball practice in junior year. We were doing like a width of the football field long toss, and my arm just like fell out of socket, my shoulder. Went to PT, hated it, found out that I was going to sit the bench probably till I graduated, and I was like, fine, like I'm in this band, I'm just going to do this, and I want to learn how to play guitar. And so I got into playing music pretty much all the way. Like that was everything on my mind constantly. Got into college, went to my community college, Labette County Community College in Parsons, Kansas, where I'm from. So yeah, born and raised Parsons, Kansas, 1985. And a bunch of homies that I'd gone to school with since second grade started a band. We all decided to start a band together called In Your Honor. And we were a screamo band, like Under Oath style, Newfound Glory, of course, Blink-182, like all of these, like, emo and like hardcore / screamo types of band. Like we wanted to be Under Oath.
Yeah.
And we got signed really quickly, dude. I was like 19 years old. We got signed to a small label, and we recorded a record in 2005. We released it in 2006. And everybody at that time, we'd done a month run. I was a guitar player for that band, not the singer like I was in the punk band. And I'd met Crystal at the time. So she was at Emporia State University while we were all in Southeast Kansas doing this band thing. That summer, the guys were like, we're ready to quit school and go for it. Let's try. And I wasn't ready to give up the idea that I would be like not first generation, but like of my immediate family, like the first one to get my degree. And like I didn't want to quit school. And I was young, but Crystal and I knew that we wanted to be together, like we wanted to get married. So yeah, dude, hardest decision of my entire life. I quit the band, and they kept going for like another year and a half. I kept helping them get shows, but Crystal got me into bikes at that time. So bikes had stopped being a part of my life at like 8 years old. Baseball took over completely, and then we live in a small town in the Midwest. So like cars my high school was 2 blocks away. We drove every day. Like it was so dumb. Especially now, like knowing just how easy it would have been just to ride a bike if I would have had the knowledge or the access to a cool bike, or thought it was a cool thing to do and not literally the lamest thing you could possibly think of. And yeah, dude, moved to Emporia, immediately bought a bike. Her dad, Billy, Crystal's dad, my father-in-law, got finally convinced me to go on a ride with them on this old 70s Schwinn that was way too big for me. And he was like, I promise we're just going to do a 20-mile ride. And I was like, you guys are crazy. 20 miles is impossible. There's no way. And we did 38 miles on that ride.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the end of it, I mean, dude, it cracked open this feeling I'd never felt of accomplishment and of experience of the land and the landscape. And yeah, dude, just all sorts of things. Things I was feeling from like the first time I learned how to play certain chords on guitar were happening from this bike ride. And I was like, what is happened? I'm in love. So I'd already written a business plan for a coffee shop because I'd worked at one. And Crystal and I had been working on that for a little while. Mm-hmm. And after that ride, and I got a bike and we started riding a lot, and I started to learn how to work on bikes. We thought, hey, like, we'll forget the coffee shop thing. Like, let's do a bike shop. And I had never even worked at a bike shop at that point. So we're talking 2006, 2007. Yeah. We got married in 2007. We called Trek in 2008. And I was like, hey, you don't know me, but my name is Bobby. I live in Emporia. I'm connected to the local Trek dealer here in town, High Gear, where I ended up getting a job later, and just said, hey, we want to open a bike shop. We want to open it with Trek as a brand, because you guys have everything, kids bikes to the craziest race bikes you've ever seen. We love the brand. We love the idea of your ethos, American made. You know, at the time, they still had some stuff that was American made, not anymore, but still family owned. And I didn't even realize at the time how the industry worked. And I didn't realize that I was talking to the local regional rep. Oh, yeah. And so I was like, well, we'll go anywhere. Like, where? Well, where should we do this? And this was February of 2008. And Wade, who's still our Trek rep to this day, he's been with the company like 20 years now. He just said Stillwater, Oklahoma, first thing out of his mouth. And I'd been here once on a small weekend run with the band within your honor. And so I'd only been here one time when we played a show in Oklahoma City, knew no one here, had no family, no connections. And then we immediately pivoted and started writing our business plan specifically for Stillwater in 2008.
Wow.
And then 3 years later, fast forward, we had bought a house for $68,500, this little 1,100 square foot house. We flipped it. I'd been working for a contractor and for the bike shop and a bunch of other odd jobs like in between. And yeah, dude, in 24 hours in September, we sold our house within 24 hours of it going on the market. We had like $5,000 to our name. We had met Corey Williams here in town, Corey is obviously like one of the biggest injectors of culture into downtown right now currently, and has been since we met. And we were actually his first commercial lease for District Bicycles at 712 South Main, where the 27 Salon is at now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where we opened. Yeah. And basically like we hadn't even signed a lease. And I was like, hey man, the U-Haul's loaded. Like we're coming. And he's like, we should really figure out lease details.
The details are we're moving in.
And this is the craziest part about the connection to the Mid-South is that at the time, DK 200, it's now called Unbound 200, and it is still currently and was at the time the biggest off-road gravel road race in the world. Mm-hmm. Had started in 2006, the summer that I moved to Emporia. Didn't know about it at all, didn't know about gravel riding at all. Gravel riding didn't become an industry term literally until 2013 when Salsa Cycles made the Warbird, and the Warbird became the first ever production gravel bike. Oh, and so dude, back in 2006, this event starts 200 miles one day all on dirt roads in the Flint Hills, self-supported, no support, like this crazy notion of riding 2 100-mile centuries back-to-back same day.
Wow.
And it was in Emporia.
Yeah.
And so we became aware of it in 2008 when we really started writing this business plan. So I thought, hey, like when we come to Stillwater, if the roads are cool, then we should put together a 100-mile race that happens in the spring in March, so people can train through the winter to be ready. If you're ready for 100 in March, then you'd be ready for 200 in June.
Right.
And I mean, I feel like I've told the story so many times, so I'm sorry if it feels like repetitive anyway for anybody that's heard me talk about it, but truly had no idea what the roads looked like. And then finally, 6 months after we got the shop open in 2012, I got out and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I mean, the roads just go on in every single direction from town.
Yep.
2 miles in every direction. We have world-class, hilly, rocky, wild, sick dirt roads.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we named the race Land Run 100 because 1889, Land Run happened just outside of town.
Right.
I had no idea about the atrocities, of what that meant for indigenous folk, for like the treaties broken to Indian nations and all of that. And that became aware to us in 2019. And then by September of 2019, Yatica Fields brought it up and we were like, all right, cool. See you later.
Yeah.
This doesn't matter. And I had been using the hashtag Mid-South Gravel because I was this Midwest emo, like screamo kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, where are we? Like, and if you look at a map, we're in the middle of the southern region of the U.S. We're not the South, even though people say we are. And we're not the Midwest because we're not Kansas, Missouri, Iowa,
Right.
It's different. So yeah, anyway, so Mid-South was something I'd already been using since 2014. And even though people weren't paying attention, obviously, and got really upset about the name change, which is another story altogether. Oh yeah. I decided to do it, and we did it as a team. And yeah, man, it's been the best decision we've ever made.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It allowed us to, number one, remove a barrier. First and foremost, we removed a barrier for any indigenous folks or any people that have any sort of negative connotation to the actual land run.
Right.
Because it wasn't that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
1889 is like how many generations ago?
Right.
We're not talking about something, and even if we were and it was a barrier, we should think about it and be sensitive to it. But number one, it allowed us to make sure that we are moving forward in a very intentional way that is accepting and sensitive to like any of these types of conversations and ideas.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, we have this internationally known brand, because at the time, man, that was the biggest and fastest selling out year we'd ever had. 2,500 spots leading into 2020 in credit card processing time, 6 minutes. There were 8,000 people on the registration on the reg page, bikereg.com. 8,000 individual IP addresses trying to get 2,500 spots.
Wow.
We sold out immediately. So I took this international brand and I threw it in the trash based on one conversation with Yatica Fields with one person who's born and raised Stillwater, Oklahoma, ultra endurance athlete, and an incredible mural artist. And yeah, it's a thing that by far I think our whole team is most proud of. And so we also removed the number from our name because Land Run 100
right.
and so now we get to focus on this idea that we are more than a competition. We're more than a race. We are absolutely a weekend endurance festival.
Yeah.
And so, and also the branding has just gotten way more fun and way more to us, like it just inclusive and vibey. And yeah,
you can expand it.
It's
not limited.
And our logo is literally the sun. It looks like a jellyfish. I call it our jellyfish, but it's a sun with hills. And we've always started facing east to the sunrise. And no one truly, unless they've ridden or ran outside of town, realize how hilly it is outside of town. But it's crazy. Our 100-mile course this year, I just built a brand new one. We change it every 2 years. Cool. It's over 7,000 feet of climbing in 106 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, right here in the middle of Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's exciting. So you said that last year that it was Land Run, you had 8,000 people trying to get 2,500 spots.
Yep, and we changed the name after registration for that exact year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what was your rebrand campaign like? Was it just like sending out a few mass emails to people? And
No.
Okay.
No. I'm so glad you asked. No, not a lot of people ask about this, but at the time we'd become.
I ask because I just rebranded this year.
Right.
So actually, our brand was Denver and Cocoa.
Oh,
but nobody knew what that was because we just did marketing and photography and content creation, all that stuff. But we switched to Stillwater Digital Marketing,
which is very clear.
Yeah.
Very easy to understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I spent every waking moment on it from the end of September until we released it on December 30th or 31st of 19. Because the first goal was that we were not going into 2020 with that name. So we had to get everything done. All branding assets. We worked with Brian Couchman, incredible graphic designer and branding artist from Oklahoma City. And he's done all of our stuff since, like all of our weird, kitschy, new fonts or like, just off-brand, like whatever. He's done all of that for us.
It's really great.
Thank you, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit that. And so Brian Couchman, we immediately got a hold of him. He pitched us one idea, like one font, one logo. And I loved it so much that I was afraid to love it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we get one chance. Like, I'm not doing this again. Like, this is emotionally taxing in a way that I had no idea, because I knew that people were emotionally invested in Land Run 100. Right. They had identified with it. They'd made it their own. They felt like they grew up with this grassroots thing that got big and is still grassroots, but still very much like on this crazy international race level with these, Tour de France pros and Red Bull athletes. And dude, now we've had 2 female Olympians current on the start line.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Haley Hunter-Smith and Sevilla Blanc. Sevilla Blanc was at the Paris Olympics this year on the mountain bike start line, and she's been here in the past. And so people felt very invested in the idea. And it also felt very Stillwater, like there's signs everywhere, like this is where Oklahoma began, which is absolutely wrong. Like, it's absolutely wrong. I mean, if you look at it in one sort of colonial like lens and one sort of statehood lens, sure, okay, we can say that. But in the 1830s, 70 years before statehood, the Trail of Tears existed, and we pushed all of these tribes, the 5 civilized tribes up from the southeast, forcibly removed them and said, this is your land as long as the grass grows, as long as the water flows. And then here comes the railroad, here comes all these other things, and then boom, the land run of 1889 to these unassigned lands, all these broken treaties, and then all of their other land got stolen, everyone got split up, allotment happened. I learned so much about this and so that was the number one part of the launch. We could not launch this without having answers to questions.
Right.
So I dove into all of this history, and dude, let me tell you, like, you want to get depressed, read about Oklahoma history, and not from the land run white settlement perspective. Read about it from indigenous perspective, and you will be in maybe one of the darkest headspaces you've ever been in. Just imagine that, number one, you were already pushed potentially, whether or not you were already here, because we have 39 federally recognized tribes in Oklahoma, by far the most than any other state in the United States. And it's all mostly because of the Trail of Tears. And those 39 tribes still are here, exist right now. So just think like you're one of the 5 civilized tribes that gets pushed, and you're pushed here, and you're told it's yours forever, and then it's taken again. Like, just think about how far removed we are from that in society, especially from our like white privileged perspective. And it ripped me to shreds. And it gave me all of the confidence to move forward with the name change. And like, we're just an event, like we're just this bike race, like I'm not this political entity. I'm not an activist. I'm not like trying to like make some change. What I was literally trying to do was remove a barrier to make it feel inclusive to everyone. And yeah, man, took all of that. I wrote a story about the process, about what we're doing, why we're doing it, why I chose the name. And then we'd become, over the last few years before that, like 17, 18, we'd become really good friends with John Watson from the Radavist. And so the Radavist.com is the most like trafficked bicycle blog website on the planet.
Oh, nice.
And so we were like, John, we want the Radavist to run the story exclusively. And we want it to go at 8 a.m. on, I think it was the 31st, in December 2019. And then we'll send the email, do the social media post, and the Radavist front page post all at the same time. And man, if you could read those first 8 emails that I received back and how hateful and racist they were, it would make you want to cry. Like, it's so awful. And I still today get people saying like, man, it's such a shame that they made you change your name. And I'm like, who made me do what to the thing that I own? No,
exactly.
No one made me change anything.
Yeah.
Other events have come under scrutiny, and DK200 was one of them, to change their name because they were resistant to it. And so then they did come under some unbelievable social media fire to change their name, and then they finally did it. And a few people within the organization of DK200, now Unbound, they wanted it to change, but there were a few individuals that didn't want to change the name and didn't see a problem with the name that they had. But anyway, people get them confused with us all the time. It's really funny because we're not connected at all, except for like knowing that who they are and friendship and stuff. But yeah, I there was a lull, right? Like the pandemic hit in 2020.
Right.
We went into, because of that demand in late 2019 into 2020, we went to a lottery / I called it the randomizer because I hate gambling and I hate the idea of like calling it a lottery when it's really not, because you can't lose anything.
It's just chance.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a randomizer. We did that for a couple of years, and we barely got the 2,500 people to enter into that. So we just let everyone in, and it looked, and we did technically sell out, but it wasn't anywhere close to the 8,000 with the name before.
It wasn't like that cap.
Right. And then last year we sold out in like 12 hours. We sold out in 12 hours again this year. But now, like, the wait list, it just keeps growing. And we're, again, dude, this morning we're over 3,800, like 3,812 people, including the wait list. It's by far the biggest ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you decide what that limit is?
I just make it up. Like, our team is super small. So it's, Crystal and I, and Josh McCulloch is our creative director on staff at Mid-South. And then here at the shop, it's Crystal and I and Tyler Seams, our manager. And then we have a super core group of people. That's Trevor Stewart, Mila Stevens, and Brett Stevens on our internal. We call it the Mid-South Brain Trust, or like the internal circle of darkness sometimes. And they've been with us honestly since year one, as basically. I mean, I don't want to diminish it by calling it volunteer status, because it's way more than that. Like, they've helped us build this thing, and I think that if we go absolutely crazy, then we absolutely have to hire more people. Yeah. And that's just not something we're super interested in. We're not interested at all in the number of people that are signed up for the race. We're 100% interested in the experience that we're able to provide to the customer, to the participant. And we're not concerned about the number. So the number's always been like the secondary thought to what can we handle and how can we deliver on a promise of a great event to everybody that comes.
That's cool. That's great.
So I get questions all of the time from other race promoters. They're like, "How did you do it? Like, how are you doing this? And we want to be this big, and we want to do this." And I'm like, "No, you do not. Like, you actually have no idea how hard this is and how much it takes, and how we think about it every waking and non-waking moment of our lives outside of this retail space." And yes, I'm thankful. If you immediately start with the idea that my success is based on this outcome or this number, and not my success is based on these people had this good of a time and they're gonna go home fulfilled. If you're basing it off of a number, like, you've already lost. That is not at all what success means, not in the event world, not in anywhere. It is 100% how did you impact the lives of those that entrusted you with the money to make this experience happen. And so even if 10 people showed up, I would try and throw the best party that I knew how. Not, if we have less demand this year over that year, or only 1,000 people, then, we're a failure. Okay? No, it's just like reframe the mindset. We're gonna make these people have the best time that they've ever seen on dirt roads. We just have, luckily, almost every year after post-pandemic, grown, and I think it's because our ethos is in this right place. It's not at all about being the biggest. We want to be the best, and that definitely doesn't necessarily mean the biggest.
Right. Yeah. So there's a book called This Is Marketing by a guy named Seth Godin. Have you ever heard of it?
I have, yeah. I've not read it, though.
Okay. So he talks about this concept, the smallest viable audience. And so he says, you don't have to go for the masses. Your audience is not everyone. It's the least number of people that you can have in order to make your endeavor successful.
Yes.
And then you grow.
Yes. We're doing that exactly. And also, what I would argue, do you know about Will Giudara and hospitality? It's called, oh man, I forget, but he's all about hospitality.
Yep.
He actually became one of the producers of The Bear this year.
Oh, okay.
And he was the owner and dude behind a restaurant in New York City that won Best Restaurant in the World a few years ago. Wow. And so, yeah, dude, hospitality is what we're doing. We're not a bike shop. We are not a bike race. We're not any of these other things. You know, we're not a music festival, even though I would like to just be a music festival.
That's your next thing.
We're working on it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We're working on some things. But what we're doing at the core of all of these endeavors, no matter what, bike race, bike shop, retail, you know, whatever we're doing, it is unreasonable hospitality. That's what it's called. And we've been doing this for years, and I had no idea what to name it or like how to define it until I found Will Giudara just this past few months ago. And he's just like unreasonable hospitality. Like you are far exceeding expectation of the customer just by like listening a little bit, just by thinking about it a little bit further than like, oh, what are my margins? How little can I spend to get the most for me and for my bottom line?
Right.
It's not about that at all. You know, he tells a story. He has these unreasonable hospitality notes written into his social media where, you know, a restaurant owner or a waitstaff person or a customer at a place had a moment of unreasonable hospitality bestowed on them, or they were a part of, you know, the person giving the customer the hospitality. Mm-hmm. And one of them was like a daughter and a mom had a trip to Paris planned. Bunch of things happened. They couldn't go. So they pivoted and went to this other place in New York City, and they're at this restaurant in New York City, this hotel, and they told the story about what they were supposed to be doing that weekend to their server and to the internal people at the hotel. Without them knowing, they decorated their room with like window pictures of, you know, the Eiffel Tower and like, oh, wow. And they had brought in like a little French book and like all this other stuff. And they were like, we're so sorry that your trip got changed. We're so glad to have you here. I hope this makes you feel like, and it's just like this much effort for an unforgettable experience.
Right.
And they didn't have to do anything. They didn't make any more money off of that, but they completely like made those people feel like they were taken care of in a way that they couldn't have felt otherwise. Yeah. Unreasonable hospitality. That's what we're doing. With the race and the shop, 100%.
That's great. Yeah, I think, how do you feel about the way that non-business owners look at small businesses and endeavors and events and things like that?
I think they all think we're millionaires. And we couldn't be further from maybe the things that we have built over time, 13 years, are worth something.
Right.
They're only worth something if the market determines it so, and if someone with the means is willing to buy it.
It's only worth money if you sell it for money.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to us, like, this is our family. This is our community. This is this is like the fabric of who we are. The shop, the bar right here where you can come and sit and eat lunch. And I don't care if you buy a bike or buy a tube or buy anything. Just come in and hang out. We have non-bike customers who are our friends, who are customers, basically, because they come and sit multiple times a week to have lunch, you know? Yeah, I think they think that we're loaded when we bought all of this on loan or credit, and we're just working our asses off to try and hopefully somehow make ends meet at the end of every single week or month or year. And yeah, the tax man is terrifying. It's all terrifying. Like, we don't know what we're actually doing. I heard this today from another podcast that people are saying like, oh yeah, they look at people that have multi-million-dollar businesses or multi locations or whatever, and they think, oh, when I get there, like, then I'll have it figured out like they do. But none of us have this figured out.
Right.
And this isn't my own, you know, this doesn't come from me, but I resonate with it so hard. We only know what we're doing after we go through it. And then it's going to change. I never saw the pandemic coming. And it's been the worst, like, 4 years of my life in some ways, and the best of my life in some ways, because we just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And now the cycling industry has changed completely. The event industry has changed completely. But yeah, we're definitely not some, like, you know, venture capitalist funded from behind, And I would love to encourage people to look at almost every small business, unless you know for sure that it's some sort of corporate entity behind it. Like, be really nice to them. Be really graceful, because they are probably poorer than you could have ever imagined, and they're probably working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Small business is way more fulfilling and really special. And yes, I get to make my own rules and I get to make my own schedule, but I'm beholden to hours on a door, and I'm beholden to making sure that I respond in an appropriate time frame, which I don't always do because we're all so busy. But no, man, it's a labor of love, and it's scary. But when people respond with coming and supporting you, there's no other feeling like it. The second day we were open in 2011, we sold 2 bikes to college kids, and I just remember being like in tears, like, this is going to work. Like, people are trusting us to not only let us work on their bikes already. We already had work orders lined up, and it was only Crystal and I as employees the first 6 months before we hired someone. But people are trusting us to buy brand new $600 bikes. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd like to say about margin and like the end of the day is that, like, people have no idea how slim the margins are on these, multi-$1,000 bikes that we sell, and then the costs incurred of either housing them, building them, knowing about them, talking about them, the light bill, the heat bill, the rent, and like everything is just increasing all the time. It's crazy, dude. It's not nearly as profitable as you'd think.
I was talking to a small business owner the other day, and they said, imagine if people knew that it cost me $20,000 just to stay in business.
Yeah. I mean,
there
have been times where bills have come due where we didn't even know how it was going to work, and then look, somehow or whatever, we sold things we needed to, or they gave us the grace, like the time to pay it later, and dude, it's insane.
Well, it's that reality that people who just go and leave a rude comment on Facebook don't understand.
They have no idea, and you should just always approach that type of thing either directly to the business owner or the manager,
right?
Or just with like deep caution before you like put this permanent sort of review. And especially with restaurants, like, dude, they just get raked over the coals. And I may have a bad experience and not want to go to that place again or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not a reviewer unless it's like real good.
Yeah.
And then I want to make sure everybody knows that. But again, 18,000 positive reviews can be erased by like 7 negatives.
Right.
And people just need to know that being in small business is terrifying. Yeah, because your demise or your success lay in the hands of not you, but of the public. And I've said this. I'm so glad you brought this up. We have to figure out how to let the customer feel completely in control, because they truly are. They have the wallet, right? And so us as a small business, I'm not thinking about Cooper's or any other bike shop in the state of Oklahoma or even Kansas for that matter as competition. Our true competition is Walmart, Target, Best Buy, like any other place, Amazon, any other place that is giving the customer the experience they want to allow them and give them the confidence to open their wallet. So I'm not in competition with other small businesses. Like, we're all here for each other. We all want each other to exist because we are what make up like the coolness factor of Stillwater,
Yeah.
And it's like, if Best Buy were gone, like that would suck, because I do go there and like I get stuff, or I love Best Buy. It wouldn't feel the same as like a blow to downtown as if we closed.
Right.
It'd be different. It's a corporation. It's a different thing. But like these are the entities at which we're at competition at battle with for people's attention and time, and their marketing budgets eclipse our gross year-over-year numbers,
Right.
But that's how we have to approach the experience that we give the customer. Like, how do we make it as inviting and the easiest possible way for them to want to spend their dollars here and give them the confidence to do so? And so I hate it whenever I hear other people be like, oh, well, your competition down the street. I'm like, dude, Cooper's been here since 1929. I respect them so much. And I want there to be so many people riding bikes in this town that we need like 5 bike shops to facilitate the service.
Right. Or that the ones here can get bigger.
Exactly.
And have a little bit more gap in the margins.
Absolutely. Which is up to the manufacturers, and honestly, like, they're just going to keep cutting them.
Well, I don't mean gaps in those margins. I just mean like, you know, if you guys were able to expand and you were doing X amount of business,
Right.
if you were doing more business out of your shop, then you have a little bit more of a safety net.
Right.
Than,
No, it's true.
You know,
it's true.
Than the other way around. So, and I mean, that's why we've lost so many businesses, especially since COVID. You know, because when margins are so slim, like especially restaurants, we saw so many restaurants and stuff go out of business, or people have to transition from a brick and mortar back into like their house for a bakery or something like that.
Right.
So we just have to get out there and support them. And I think, and I know a lot of people can complain sometimes about costs, like of a small business. They say, "Oh yeah, well it's more expensive to buy my bike tire from here than from Amazon or something like that." But at the end of the day, like, do you want this to be here? Is it worth $2 more?
We say this all the time. Online bike shops have no hands. Like they can't work on your bike. You know, I offered you a beer or a Topo Chico before we started, and we always have like PBR in the back, and you can sit here and chat, and we can teach you things, and you can gather here. We have group rides here. You know, like yes, you may be able to get the exact same thing for cheaper, either from the manufacturer themselves or from an online place, but. Yeah, I mean, is that what we want? Like, do we really want to be at home in our underwear, buying things and stockpiling toilet paper for the rest of our lives and not having anywhere to go and see faces and have experience and make memories? Like, do we truly want to like push ourselves to isolation to the fact that like to the point where everything downtown is vacant in every single town across America? Like, the answer is no. No, like we are a communal species, whether we want to admit it or not. I think the rise of social media and the rise of tech has emboldened this isolation on top of homes and garages big enough to drive into and air conditioning. And, you know, you can drive into your garage and get out of your car and close the door and never even know who your next door neighbor is. And this has been a thing for a long time. It's not a new concept.
Right.
But it's just like social media has made it even worse.
But still about 50 years, really.
Yeah. I mean, not that long in the course of history.
Yeah,
right. And so good point. Like there's a millennia or whatever, you know, thousands and thousands of years of a completely different way of human interaction. And now we think that we know every single thing about the world from a 4-inch screen that's in our pocket, but actually it's making the world a lot bigger place instead of a smaller place.
Yeah.
Like we may know what's happening across the world, but we have no idea what could be happening across the street.
Right.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Well, and that's actually why I started this podcast, because yes, I see that. Like I work in social media. That's what we do, is we pay attention to what's happening on social media in Stillwater, help our clients stay ahead of the curve, all those kinds of things. And so the idea of this was, well, nowadays there are just so many things pulling at people's time. I want somebody who doesn't have time between going to work and picking their kids up from school and going home and making sure everybody's fed and clothed and taken care of. The person who doesn't get a break during any of those things, if they want to hear about a business they like, they can just pop the podcast on in the car.
Yes.
You know, or if they go, oh yeah, I always see that District Bikes place. And, you know, my kids said they wanted a bike for Christmas, you know, I might check that out, you know? And it's like, hey,
Yes.
you know, you can listen to the owner talk for, you know, 30 minutes to an hour about it and just kind of get to know the person. And then people hear those conversations. My wife and I were talking to a business owner the other night who wanted to have like a little like pre-meet before the podcast. We ended up talking for 2 hours. And afterwards, my wife said, every time we want that product, we're going there.
Yes. It's relational.
Yeah.
It's so relational. And that's the reason we chose District as the name of the bike shop. We wanted to name the bike shop after a neighborhood or an area or a district in town.
Yeah, we don't have those.
And we didn't have any. Exactly. And I had no idea that there weren't any. And so we got to downtown, and I was thinking downtown Stillwater was going to look like, you know, downtown Lawrence, Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where I'd, you know, gone to shows growing up and all sorts of stuff like that. And I was like, dude, is this a joke? Like, where is the actual downtown?
Yeah.
And then the Strip, I saw the Strip, and I was like, well, that's a little closer. Maybe we're missing it, but we weren't. And
no, we just drove through it.
yeah, but we just sat at Aspen Coffee at Kelly's coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
It's been open 30 years now.
I worked for them for a while.
Yes, dude. Matt and Kelly are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Matt, you know, Kelly's one of my best friends. I see him almost every day. And we sat there and we were like, how cool would it be to own a bike shop across the street from this coffee shop? And we were looking at the building now that's on the corner of 7th and Main, and that's what that used to be Hallmark.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up around the corner where M&K Photography was.
Right.
And then this came available less than 6 months after we opened.
Oh.
And Corey and his buddies had bought it to do the apartments upstairs, which there are 5 apartments upstairs where Stillwater Bay used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And this was empty, and it was 3 separate retail entities. So it had 3 separate front doors, and it had 8-foot ceilings. And I was like, Corey, man, we want it. And he was like, dude, you can't. And I was like, well, watch me. And then a year and a half later, so we were 2.5 years in total to business. So yeah, like whatever that time frame is, we got the keys and we blew it all out. We had the garage door put in. That's a super funny story. Corey's partners wanted to put in a small, like regular size garage door on this east side of the building, where it's a whole entire opening. And we were like, no, we want a custom overhead door, full custom, full door. It looks like a firehouse.
Yeah.
And people ask us all the time, oh, is this a firehouse? We're like, no.
Well, otherwise they go like halfway up the wall.
Yeah. So it would have been framed way in,
Yeah.
and then this little bitty thing halfway up. And so Corey told his partners, yeah, that's what we'll do. Yeah, cool. We'll just put a regular one in. And he lied to them. And then he had this commissioned, and we got this like $16,000 that just built into our rent. We didn't have to pay for that. It was sick. And
Nice.
Anyway, we love it, dude. We love this spot. We feel like this was home the whole time.
Yeah.
And now we've gotten to watch Corey again continue to invest in downtown. He bought the Stone Cloud building.
Yeah.
That Stone Cloud Brewing is in. I was with him when he pitched that idea of the building to Joel Irby, that owns Stone Cloud from Oklahoma City. And I like looked Joel in the face. I grabbed him and I was like, dude, this will work. Like, I swear to you, it will work. Like the cycling community alone will like sustain you. I promise. And then he did it. And then Corey got the building next door and has done Empire. And he bought the Hatch building, and Corey owns the franchise for Hatch. And yeah, dude, like I think we're just now, what I thought was going to happen within 4 years of us opening is now finally 13 years later happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are going to start moving to town because of all of this.
Yeah.
I know it.
That's the hope.
And Block 34, dude, is going to be so sick.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, dude, I was on the committee 10 years ago. What do we do with this? And I was like, y'all, I have no idea about what to build, but what I think you need to build is something where people can gather, and it needs to be sick. And there were all these really bad ideas, and I think we paid that consulting company $100,000 from Austin, Texas, to come and do this thing that nothing came from. And maybe we got some ideas later down the road, but it's just crazy, like what has to happen. You know, like whenever the answer is so simple, like let's just look at other communities, and then finally Guthrie Green, I think, was the biggest.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest inspiration for what's going to happen down
Right.
there. And now, dude, we're going to use it for Mid-South as
Yeah.
either the main stage or maybe an auxiliary stage, so we can have 2 sets of live music happening all weekend long in 2 separate parts of downtown.
So that's how we're going to make this music festival thing happen.
It's on, dude. It's on. 916 South Lewis, also, if you're watching this, 916 South Lewis is where the Casual Scene bookstore is at.
Oh, yeah.
And that is my Mid-South HQ building now. It was Morgan Robinson's art studio for 14 years.
Yep.
And Morgan made the sculpture that's on the edge of town at Western. And so anyway, Morgan was moving out of town. I took over the lease. All of my Mid-South stuff was there. Finish line, coolers, tables, bookstores in the front. And now we don't have a name yet, but we have a music venue.
Yeah.
Stillwater's newest, tiniest, diviest, secret little underground venue.
Mm-hmm.
And next show is going to be on Friday, January 24th with a bunch of college kids bands,
Nice.
Dreamsicle,
Mm-hmm.
and Cow Tippers, and I got a couple other bands I'm talking to.
You worked on that with Olin, right?
Yeah, Olin Weaver.
Yeah.
Shout out. That's my man. He's my sound engineer.
Yeah. He's been like the closest thing to a mentor that I've had with photo, video, all that stuff.
He's incredible.
I was talking to him the other day. I was like, you realize we met 6 years ago? I helped launch a church in Cushing, and Olin was our sound guy.
Yeah.
And Olin was our sound guy because Elizabeth was my vocal coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I told her, I was like, yeah, I think I have all the instrumentalists I need, but I don't have a sound engineer. And she goes, oh, my husband's a sound engineer. Little did I know that Olin was like the sound engineer that he is. Like,
yeah, dude. Goo Goo Dolls, Ben Folds 5, Shania Twain, like you name it.
see, he won't even name drop for me.
Oh, yeah.
I can't hardly get him to. He just goes, if you've heard him in these spaces, I may have worked with them.
Yeah. 100%, dude. Ben Skill, like, he's incredible, man. Olin's a genius. And I feel lucky to know him. And so now we've transformed this space that we're sitting in into a live recording and live live audio and video recording studio, and we're calling it Live at District. And it's basically like Tiny Desk concerts on crack.
Yeah, I've seen those. Those are awesome.
Thanks, man. And Olin has been a part of all 4 volumes. So we've got 3 of them up on YouTube right now. So Live at District on YouTube. And then we've got a set that we just did last week with Rhett Scholl and all these guys and girls from Atlanta, Georgia. Matthew Scott, guitar player from Guthrie, and then Kaylin Faye is incredible singer-songwriter from Tulsa, and her pedal steel player is Hank Early from the Turnpike Troubadours.
Oh, wow.
And Hank was sitting here in my bike shop, and I couldn't believe it, dude. This was last Monday. It was a week ago today, and so we're working on all the editing for all of that right now. But yeah, I've just been like clawing music back into my existence. Like bikes took over for so long. And I've never been a racer, so it was always for me, it was always way more about experience.
Yeah.
But dude, truly at the inside of my soul, it's been music. It's always been music. And so now with all this other momentum happening in town with food, like the entertainment side is next.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe I can help be on the forefront of that.
Yeah. So what are some other things with that are kind of up and coming?
So
that you can talk about.
Yeah. Well,
I've ran into that with a lot of people. They're like, well, I'm not talking about this thing yet, but there's maybe in a few months we can talk again.
Well, I'm trying to get Live at District funded. I'm trying to get it funded. It costs, I'll just say this straight up, it costs us like $7,500 every single time we do it. And we're not, we sold tickets a couple of times when we made the Live at District a live show, but we figured out that that's not the way to do it. Like we can't get the recording we want. So the last one was private, like homie entry only.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a live show. You couldn't hear the vocals because we were going straight into a board.
Have you thought about Patreon?
We thought about Patreon. I'm going to NAMM at the end of January with Rhett Scholl and Eli Lester. Eli Lester is the owner of Two Rock Amps, and he builds the entire custom guitar rigs for the live touring acts for John Mayer, for Gary Clark Jr., for Ben Harper, and Billy Strings.
No big deal.
No big deal. Eli has become a super good friend. I met him in Chicago at the Fretboard Summit that Rhett got me up to, another guitar conference, and Eli's just become such a good dude. And dude, he sent us 2 amps that was like worth like $15,000 for both of them.
Oh my gosh.
Like $8,000 a piece or something crazy for backline for the Live at District. And Eli's like, dude, I'll get you a pass to NAMM. NAMM is the biggest guitar conference show on the planet. And we're going to go pitch to like Fender, Gibson, Sweetwater, and just be like, hey, like 2 times a year, we need like $20,000. We can fly people out, do the production, rent the lenses. We're renting anamorphic lenses. We're blowing it out with audio equipment and mics. So, I mean, I'm working on that, but at the same time, like this new tiny venue is the hope. The hope is that this will turn into, like, it will continue to be what it is, and we can also record there. So we need to do some sound treatment.
Right.
We could do some live recordings there, or like even just studio album, like smaller type things.
Yeah.
But man, I really want a bigger space. I want a mini Canes Ballroom in downtown. And I've said it to a lot of people, and I'll say it straight up. I have no money to do it. But there are a few buildings in particular that I think would be really, really great.
Yeah.
And we would need to turn them into event spaces for weddings and for, family reunions or sorority fraternity events or birthdays or whatever. But we could have a restaurant in the front of some sort, whatever, tacos, smash burgers, something delicious with a real small bar or a decent bar that could also facilitate the venue space. Right. And then we could also have, when Block 34, when the weather's bad in the wintertime, we can't have outdoor concerts. We could do this, and I think it's a sustainable business idea.
You ever been to the Jones Assembly?
Absolutely.
We went and saw Johnny swim there last October. It was a good time.
We saw St. Paul and the Broken Bones there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good.
I love that concept where they have like the covered space for the concert, and then they just have that whole like AstroTurf benches, the whole thing, food in the back. You
talk about a multi-million-dollar project. That thing is so I'm thinking that, but like Stillwater vibes.
Right. Stillwater version.
Yeah, like smaller.
For those of you just hearing this, I just shrunk down that whole concept. Like a smaller, comfortable but scalable.
Yeah, like Canes Ballroom but with restaurant. Yeah.
Right.
So Jones Assembly but a little like dirtbaggier.
A little dirtbaggier. That's cool. So what's on the forefront for you guys?
So right now, Mid-South 2025, our 13th year is coming right up, man. Like right now it's December 16th. So we're exactly 3 months away from 3,800 people We're going to have the biggest expo we've ever had. We're going to have the best live music we've ever had.
That's awesome.
Ever, dude.
Are you going to take up any more like street space?
Same
Or is it
amount
gonna
of
be about the same.
Same amount of space. Maybe some rearranging of things, just to facilitate potentially more vendors. So we may have to take another block or two.
Yeah.
We'll see. Block 34 obviously won't be ready yet.
Right.
That will become Expo Village in the future.
Right.
And then, yeah, dude, like I'm just full gas into planning, and we're gonna do our best performing video that we've ever done for the Mid-South was a pre-ride course, like a pre-course ride that Yadika Fields and I did together of the brand new course to Perry that we've done the last 2 years. So this year with the new one going to Guthrie. I haven't said that anywhere publicly yet.
That's okay. This won't come out, or I can cut it out. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I don't think you should. I don't care. It's fine. So we're going to Guthrie. Everybody, all the homies in town know, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's 106.8 miles. It's over 7,000 feet of climbing, and and it's a bunch of familiar roads that are bangers, like great old school stuff, but some new roads way west of I-35 that we've never used before.
Oh, west of 35.
Yeah, and
Cool.
so we're gonna film that probably like right after the new year.
Nice.
So we're working on production of that, editing of all the Live at District stuff right now, wrapping my head around reels and like just how we can talk, get it in front of as many people as possible.
Yep.
But yeah, man, we're just really thankful to have weathered the pandemic and to have weathered 13 years of retail bicycle business.
Right. Retail's hard.
It's crazy, man. You have to love it. You have to love the community. You have to love the spontaneity. You have to love being interrupted every 5 minutes, which is really good for me because I'm super ADHD and ADD, if you haven't figured that out already by how I jump around in conversation. But yeah, man, I want to dude, I just want to dig my heels into Stillwater. And I know we already obviously have, but this is such a sick town. This town is phenomenal. We are punching, finally, in my opinion, and we were in some ways already, obviously, before 13 years ago, but I think now, more than ever, we're punching above our weight in category of town size than any other town of 50,000 that I can think of.
So what do you mean punching above our weight?
So we just have better options for, housing prices.
Like what we offer relative to how big our town is?
Yeah, traffic, food options now, entertainment. Like we have OSU, we have the McKnight Center. We're about to have Block 34. I've got this new tiny venue that is going to be sick, I promise. We have I think, world-class bike shop. We have great coffee options. We have great bakeries. We have great parks. We have more parks per square foot. Have you talked about this in any of the other?
No.
Okay, and the city is doing an audit about green space and parks, especially with Block 34 coming online because of resources of what they can and can't take care of.
Right.
But we are way above the national average for square footage of green space, park space per capita, per person that lives here population-wise than any other town at our same population. So we have great green space. It's such a good place to raise your kids, man. I know everybody says that, but it is. Our schools are great, and they're just getting better. The high school's getting built. We have everything we could possibly need, and if we needed something that we don't have, Tulsa and Oklahoma City are an hour away.
Right.
And they're easy to get to.
Yeah.
So we don't live in a metro. We're not paying incredible, outrageous retail prices for houses or real estate prices. Temperature is good to ride bikes all year round. We have world-class dirt roads to ride. I promise you. If you get a bike and go ride them, you'll just want to keep doing it. We have Lake McMurtry. Lake McMurtry is our crown jewel that almost no one goes to.
Yeah.
37 miles of mountain bike trail out there. It's so sick. Camping is great. Fishing is great. Yeah, man, I just think that we're punching above our weight in a lot of ways. And it's only getting better. We now have Stone Cloud. That is the official OSU auxiliary office for all business for OSU to be done. Every office party imaginable is happening down there. Great live music. I helped book live music for Stone Cloud too, and ran some sound for some shows there this year, which was great.
Nice.
Yeah, man. The people that are at the forefront of what's going on in the community and invested in making this place better for their community, not just for themselves, are some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and are just good, wholesome, genuine, wonderful humans. They're all flawed, of course, have everyone's best interests deeply at heart. And I'd say a lot of those people are my closest friends. And so I feel like together we're making this place better every single day. And I don't want to go anywhere else, man. Like, nowhere. I've visited all over the world, actually, and ridden my bike all over the world. And I never thought I would live in Oklahoma. Not ever. I was like, it's going to be Colorado, or it's going to be Appalachia, or it's going to be the Pacific Northwest, or I don't know, let's go to Europe or something. And I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I have no regrets, and I have no thought of leaving anytime soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up.
Sick.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks so much, Denver.
Thanks for tuning in to Still Connect. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bobby. I know that I did. And there's always more where that came from. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to follow on social media to stay in the loop, as well as share this podcast with all of your Stillwater folks so we can grow this podcast, these conversations, and ultimately our community. If you want to go a step further and help bring these stories to life, consider supporting the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/stillconnectpodcast, or check out the link in the show notes, where you can get early access to episodes, a peek behind the curtain at the podcast process, and a shout out on an episode for as little as $5 a month. With our higher level tiers, you can get access to things like patron-only polls, special requests for the show, access to online Q&As, and in-person hangouts with me and your fellow patrons. No matter what your capacity for supporting the podcast is, every little bit helps grow this amazing community. And we all need community. So even when life gets busy, make sure you still connect.